Attitude is everything. Change your attitude, and you change your life. By Keller. Lesson 7. How are you? Your day goes the way the corners of your mouth turn. Our answer to the question, how are you, seems like such a small thing. But we must answer that question at least 10 times a day, and perhaps as many as 50. So it's not a small thing at all. It's a significant part of our daily conversations. When someone asks, how are you? What do you say? Your answer is usually no more than a few words. And yet, that short response tells a lot about you and your attitude. In fact, your response can literally shape your attitude. I've observed that the responses to how are you can be classified into 3 categories: negative, mediocre, and positive. Let's examine these 3 categories and some common responses under each one. When someone responds with "don't ask," I know I'm in for trouble. That person is going to unleash a multitude of complaints and make me sorry for asking how are you in the first place. And I really pity those who take the "thank God it's Friday" approach to life. Think of what they're saying. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are bad days every week. For these people, 4/5 of their work week is lousy. The 5th day, Friday, is bearable, only because they know they'll have the next 2 days off. Is this a way to live your life? Are you beginning to see how these negative phrases can poison your attitude and turn off other people? Those who use positive words like these have a bounce in their step, and you feel a little better just by being around them. Be honest. How did you feel as you read the positive list? I don't know about you, but I'm energized and excited as I review that list. These are the people I look forward to meeting today. These are the people who are more likely to get my business. Why not go back and reread the negative list and the mediocre list? Say them out loud. How do they make you feel? Bummed out for sure. You see, if given the choice, I'd rather be around people who are positive and full of life, as opposed to those who are negative and listless. It's like the old saying that everybody lights up a room, someone they walk into the room, and someone they walk out. You want to be the one who. A smile is an inexpensive way to improve your looks. Join the positive group. Well, you've had a chance to review some typical responses in each category: negative, mediocre, and positive. Which of these phrases do you use most often? Which responses do your friends and family use? If you find yourself in the negative or mediocre group, I suggest you immediately consider revising your response and joining the ranks of the positive. Here's why. When you're asked how are you, and you say horrible or not too bad, your physiology is adversely affected. You tend to slump your shoulders and head and take on a depressed posture. What about your emotions? After stating that you're lousy, do you feel better? Of course not. You feel even more down in the dumps because negative words and thoughts generate negative feelings and eventually negative results. And it's up to you to break it. Even if real circumstances in your life persuaded you to state that you're lousy, perhaps a promising business deal fell through, or your child received poor grades in school, your gloomy attitude does nothing to improve the situation. To make matters worse, your mediocre or negative reply turns others off. They're dragged down just being around you and hearing your pessimism. Form a new habit if all of these negative consequences flow from your words. Why do you continue to say them? More than likely, it's because you haven't recognized that you have a choice in the matter. Instead, you're following a habit that you developed many years ago, a habit that no longer serves you. In the end, your own words are a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say everything is terrible, your mind is attracted to those people and circumstances that will cause that statement to be true. If, on the other hand, you repeatedly state that your life is wonderful, your mind will begin to move you in a positive direction. Say you are well, or all is well with you, and God shall hear your words and make them come true. For instance, just consider what happens when you respond that you're excellent or terrific. As you say these words, your physiology begins to correspond with your optimistic language. Your posture is more upright. Other people are attracted to your energy and vitality. Your business and personal relationships improve. Will all of your life's problems magically disappear? No, but you've set in motion a very important principle. We get what we expect in life. Say you are well, or all is well with you, and God shall hear your words and make them come true. Ella Wheeler Wilcox. I can tell you from firsthand experience that this is one of those little things in life that makes a big difference. About 15 years ago, when someone asked me, how are you? I'd say something like okay with very little energy. You know what I was doing? I was programming myself to have okay relationships with people. I was programming myself to have okay success. I was programming myself to have an okay attitude and an okay life. But then, thank goodness, I learned that I didn't have to settle for an okay life. So I picked up my response a few notches and began to say terrific. I said it with some energy. Sure, at first it was a little uncomfortable. Some people looked at me like I was a little strange. But after about a week, it started to come naturally to me. And I was amazed at how much better I felt and how people were much more interested in talking with me. Believe me, this is not rocket science. You don't need talent, money, or good looks to have a great attitude. You just need to get in the habit of using a high-energy, positive response, and you'll get the same exciting results I got. What if I don't feel terrific? Whenever I do a presentation and recommend to the audience that they give a very upbeat response to "How are you?" someone always comes up to me afterward and says, "What if I really don't feel terrific?" I don't want to lie to my friends and coworkers by telling them everything is wonderful when it isn't. Now, don't get me wrong. I put the highest value on integrity and telling the truth. Yet, I don't think this is a matter of telling the truth. Let me explain. Assume for a moment that Sally feels tired. When someone at work asks her, "How are you?" she wants to be perfectly honest, so she says, "I'm tired." Here's what will happen. Sally will reinforce the belief that she's tired. She'll feel even more fatigued. She'll probably slump her shoulders and let out a sigh. She'll have a lousy, unproductive day at work. And let's get back to the person who asked Sally the question, and who probably regrets it now. That person also feels worse. After all, when someone tells you how tired she is, do you feel uplifted? No way. Just the suggestion of the word tired, and you start yawning. So, Sally has brought herself down, as well as her coworker. Okay, Sally goes home after her grueling day, and now she's exhausted. So she plops into her favorite chair and opens the newspaper to look at the winning lottery numbers. As she pulls her own ticket out of her wallet, she discovers that she's holding the winning ticket. She just won $10 million. What do you think Sally would do? Remember, she's very tired. You and I both know that Sally would leap out of her chair, be jumping up and down, screaming and waving her arms in the air. You'd think she was leading an aerobics class. Naturally, she'd run to pick up the phone to call her family and friends. She'd be a bundle of energy and would probably stay up all night celebrating and planning what to do with the money. But wait a second. 10 seconds ago, this woman was exhausted. Now, she's got the energy of a 15-year-old cheerleader who has just been told she made the cheerleading squad. What happened in those 10 seconds to change someone from being utterly exhausted to wildly exuberant? Did she get a shot of vitamin B12? Did anyone throw a bucket of ice water in her face? No. Her transformation was entirely mental. Now, I'm not trying to diminish what Sally was feeling. Her fatigue was very real, but it wasn't as much physical as mental. So, was Sally telling the truth when she said she was tired? It really has very little to do with the truth. It's a matter of what Sally chose to focus on. She could concentrate on feeling tired. That was one option. On the other hand, she could have thought about the many blessings in her life and felt very fortunate and energized. When we tell ourselves that we're tired, we feel tired. When we tell ourselves that we feel terrific, we feel energized. As you'll recall from Lesson 2, we become what we think about. Respond with enthusiasm for the next month. When anyone asks, "How are you?" whether it's someone at work or a cashier at the store, respond with energy and enthusiasm that you're great or terrific. Say it with a smile and a sparkle in your eye. It doesn't matter whether or not you completely and totally feel terrific at that moment. Simply apply the act as if principle. In other words, if you want to be more positive, act as if you already are, and pretty soon, you'll find that you have, in fact, become more positive. Don't worry if you feel a little uncomfortable saying these words at the beginning. Stick with it, and eventually you'll grow into it. You'll quickly notice that you feel better, that others want to be around you, and that positive results will come your way. By the way, how are you? Lesson 8. Stop complaining. Troubles, like babies, grow larger by nursing. How do you feel when someone unloads all of his problems and complaints on you? Not very uplifting and energizing, is it? The truth is, nobody likes to be around a complainer, except, perhaps, other complainers. Of course, all of us complain at one time or another. The important question is, how often do you complain? If you're wondering whether you complain too much, simply ask your friends, relatives, or coworkers. They'll let you know. Now, when I say complain, I'm not talking about those instances when you discuss your problems in an attempt to search for solutions. That's constructive and commendable. And I'm not referring to those occasions when you share your life experiences, including disappointments, with friends or relatives in the context of bringing them up to date on the latest developments in your life. After all, part of being human is sharing our experiences and supporting each other. Nobody wants to hear about your aches and pains. Maybe a few examples will give you a better idea about the kind of complaining that's counterproductive. One of the most common areas of complaint is the subject of illness. In this category are comments such as, "My back is killing me," or "I have a terrible sinus headache." Worse yet, some people get very graphic in explaining the gory details of their particular ailment, such as, "I had this green stuff oozing out of my..." And doesn't it just make your day when your coworker tells you that he or she is nauseous? Let's face it, what can I possibly do for you if you have a stomach ache? I'm not a physician. Go to a doctor if you have a medical problem. More importantly, why are you telling me this? You might want sympathy, but all you're doing is dragging me down and reinforcing your own suffering. Talking about pain and discomfort will only bring you more of the same and encourage those around you to look for the exits. When it comes to complaints about illness, the principle of escalation usually rears its ugly head. Here's how it works. You tell your friend about the agony you went through with the flu. Your friend interrupts and says, "You think you had it bad. When I had the flu, I had a 104-degree fever and had to be rushed to the hospital. I almost died." Or, tell someone that your back or foot hurts, and count how many seconds it takes for that person to switch the conversation to his or her own back pain and aching feet. Complainers love to play this game. Their pain is always worse than yours. Don't let it rain on your parade. Another favorite complaint area is the weather. It starts to rain and people say, "What a lousy, miserable day." Why does some moisture from the heavens make it a lousy day? When someone makes that remark to me, I respond, "It's wet out, but it's a great day." By associating rain with lousy day, you're programming yourself in a negative way. Furthermore, your complaints about the weather won't change the conditions. It simply makes no sense to get upset about things over which you have no control and which have no significant impact on your life. Finally, there are the petty complaints, such as, "The waiter didn't come over to take my order for 5 minutes," or "John got an office with a larger window than I have." Life presents too many difficult challenges for us to get bogged down with silly things like that. And when you gripe about insignificant things, you're also saying something about yourself. If I'm your employer or a member of your team, I'm wondering how you'll react when we really have a problem worth worrying about. He had every reason to complain. Recently, I was in my office and thinking about some of the things that weren't going as well as I had planned. You know, the typical business problems, results not happening as fast as I had expected. And I'll confess that I'd been doing a little complaining about it. Then Pedro walked in. Pedro is in his early 20s and came to this country about 6 years ago from Honduras. He works for a company that cleans homes and offices. You talk about a positive attitude. Pedro is one of the most positive people I've ever met, always smiling and upbeat. On this day, however, I asked Pedro about Hurricane Mitch and its impact on his homeland. The smile quickly left his face. He told me of the devastation the hurricane had caused. Thousands of people had died. More than 1 million people were left homeless. Pedro said that his father, mother, and brother still lived in Honduras, and he had no idea if they were dead or alive. He had no way to contact them. All the phone lines in that area had been destroyed. Pedro said he thought about his family every day. Can you imagine the agony of not even knowing if your family is still alive? Then Pedro went on to tell me about all the things he was doing to help the people in Honduras. He was collecting money, clothing, and other necessities. He was actively working with the relief organizations. Instead of just griping about the problem, he was doing whatever he could do to ease their pain. After speaking with Pedro, I began to realize just how inconsequential my own problems were, and how fortunate I am. You better believe I stopped complaining. I faced the rest of the day with renewed energy and a much better attitude. By the way, several weeks later I saw Pedro again. And yes, he had his usual winning smile and his great attitude. The good news is that his family members are all alive. The bad news is that they lost everything in the flood and are now living in a shelter. Clean water is very scarce. Disease is rampant. I can't even fathom what it's like to lose everything you own and have to start over from scratch, especially under these difficult conditions. Can you? There's no doubt about it. Pedro has every reason to whine about his family's bad luck. But he doesn't. He realizes that complaining would be a terrible waste of his time and energy. Thank you, Pedro, for reminding all of us that complaining is not the answer to our challenges in life. Putting things in perspective, there's another valuable lesson that we can learn from Pedro, and that's the importance of keeping things in perspective. Over the years, I've noticed that complainers lack perspective. They tend to blow their problems way out of proportion. Optimistic people, people with great attitudes, tend to have a sense of what's truly important in life. The dictionary defines perspective as the capacity to view things in their true relation or relative importance. Think about the people you know. Do you have any friends who get bent out of shape because they got a flat tire? And how about those who sever ties with close family members because of a dispute over the seating arrangements at a wedding? It's clear these folks have lost sight of the relative importance of things. I think we can all learn from Eddie Rickenbacker, who drifted in a life raft for 21 days, hopelessly lost in the Pacific. After surviving the ordeal, Rickenbacker said, "If you have all the fresh water you want to drink and all the food you want to eat, you ought never complain about anything. If you are all wrapped up in yourself, you're overdressed." To review, complaints work against you in 3 ways. First, no one wants to hear negative news about your illness and your problems. Second, complaining reinforces your own pain and discomfort. So why keep replaying painful, negative memories? Third, complaining, by itself, accomplishes nothing and diverts you from the constructive actions you could be taking to improve your situation. It's been said that 90% of the people don't care about your problems, and the other 10% are glad you have them. Seriously though, all of us can cut down on our complaining. From now on, let's do ourselves and others a favor and make our conversations uplifting. The people who don't complain very much, and those who speak positively, are a joy to be around. Decide to join that group, so people won't have to cross the street when they see you coming. Lesson 9. Heaven helps those who act. Nothing happens by itself. It all will come your way once you understand that you have to make it come your way by your own exertions. Associate with positive people. A mirror reflects a man's face, but what he is really like is shown by the kind of friends he chooses. In high school, Mike spent a lot of time with a bunch of guys in his neighborhood. According to Mike, these guys just liked to sit on the front porch and watch cars go by. They had no goals and no dreams. They were always negative. Whenever Mike suggested they do something new, the others would discourage him. "It's stupid or not cool," they told him. Mike just went along with them, so he could remain part of the group. When Mike went off to college, he still ran into some negative people. But he also met people who were positive, who wanted to learn, who wanted to achieve things. Mike decided to spend his time with the positive people. Almost immediately, Mike started to feel much better about himself. He developed a great attitude. He began to set goals. And I'm happy to tell you Mike now runs his own successful video production company and has a wonderful family. One by one, he is accomplishing all of the goals he has set. When I asked Mike what happened to his high school friends, he told me, "They still live in the same neighborhood. They're still negative, and they're still doing nothing with their lives." Mike added, "I'd never be where I am now if I kept hanging out with those guys. I'd still be at the corner deli playing pinball." Mike's story is a great reminder about the influence others have on our lives. And yet sometimes we get in the habit of being with certain people, and we just don't think about the consequences. Have you ever heard the axiom, "Tell me who you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you are"? There's a lot of wisdom in that simple statement. Have you given much thought to how this principle has been molding and shaping your life? Think back to when you were growing up. Do you remember how concerned our parents were about who we hung out with? Our mom or dad wanted to meet our friends and know all kinds of details about them. Why? Our parents knew that we'd be greatly influenced by our friends, that we'd tend to pick up some of their habits, and that we'd probably do the things our friends were doing. Our parents were concerned for good reason. And I'll bet that if you have children, you closely watch their friends because of the impact these youngsters will have on your children. Toxic people and nourishing people. In today's literature, we see the terms toxic people and nourishing people. As you might expect, toxic people are the ones who always dwell on the negative. The dictionary defines toxic as poisonous. Toxic people continually spew their verbal poison. In contrast, the dictionary definition of nourishing is to promote the growth of. Nourishing people are positive and supportive. They lift your spirits and are a joy to be around. Toxic people will always try to drag you down to their level. They hammer away at you with all of the things you can't do and all of the things that are impossible. They barrage you with gloomy statements about the lousy economy, the problems in their life, the problems soon to be in your life, and the terrible prospects for the future. If you're lucky, they might even throw in a few words about their aches and pains. After listening to toxic people, you feel listless and drained. Motivational speaker Les Brown refers to these people as dream killers. Psychologist Jack Canfield describes them as energy vampires because they suck all the positive energy out of you. Have you ever been with a negative person and felt as if that individual were physically taking energy from you? I think we've all had that experience many times. One thing is certain: spend time with toxic people and their negative messages will wear you down. On the other hand, how do you feel when you're around people who are positive, enthusiastic, and supportive? You're energized and inspired. There's something truly amazing about positive people. They seem to have a positive energy that lights up a room. When you're around them, you start to pick up their attitude and you feel as if you have added strength to vigorously pursue your own goals. We become part of what we are around. Just off the charts. He's always positive, always enthusiastic, and he gives a tremendous lift to everyone who crosses his path. His attitude inspires people to greatness. Can you see how your attitude might improve if you had a friend like John in your life? Your friends will stretch your vision or choke your dreams. As you also know, once that song becomes less popular and isn't played as frequently on the radio, you'll tend to think about it and sing it to yourself much less often. There's an important lesson here. The mind tends to dwell upon whatever is repeated over and over. Unfortunately, the mind doesn't discriminate between messages that are good for us and those that are harmful. If we hear something often enough, we will tend to believe it and act upon it. Just as a song repeated many times will get us thinking about that song, so too will repeated thoughts about success get us thinking about success. So if we'll make sure to fill our mind with positive messages, we're going to be more positive and move forward boldly to achieve our goals. The more positive reinforcement, the better. And where can we get this positive reinforcement? Well, one way is to read motivational books. Congratulations, because you're doing that right now. In addition, we can listen to motivational tapes and spend lots of time with positive people. Are you surrounding yourself with negative friends and spending a lot of time with them in your leisure hours? If so, I'm going to ask you to think about spending much less time with these people, or even no time at all with them. Sounds harsh, doesn't it? After all, I'm suggesting that you limit or eliminate your involvement with some long-standing friends. When I tell people this at my seminars, invariably someone will raise a hand and accuse me of being cold or uncaring. The audience member will typically say, "Shouldn't we try to help our negative friends instead of dumping them?" Well, you're free to do whatever you think is best, and each situation must be dealt with on its own unique facts. However, I've found that in most cases, hanging around these negative friends doesn't help them, and it doesn't help you either. Everyone gets dragged down because most negative people don't want to change. They just want someone to listen to their tales of woe. If you have a strong urge to spend time with negative friends, ask yourself, why am I choosing to be with these people? Consciously or unconsciously, you may be choosing to hold yourself back, to be less than you are capable of becoming. By the way, I think it's wonderful to try to help someone overcome their negativity. But if you've been trying for several years and aren't getting anywhere, maybe it's time to move on. Let me clarify one important point. I'm not making a judgment here that negative people are any less worthy than other people. I'm saying there are consequences if you spend time with people who are negative. What are the consequences? You'll be less happy and less successful than you could be. Are the things around you helping you toward success, or are they holding you back? Choose your friends wisely. As I said at the beginning of this lesson, tell me who you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you are. If you're serious about getting a raise or a promotion at work, succeeding in your own business, or improving yourself as a human being, then you have to start associating with people who can take you to the next level. As you increase your associations with nourishing people, you'll feel better about yourself and have renewed energy to achieve your goals. You'll become a more positive, upbeat person, the kind of person others love to be around. I used to think it was important to associate with positive people and to limit involvement with negative people. Now, I believe it's essential if you want to be a high achiever and a happy individual. So, surround yourself with positive, nourishing people. They'll lift you up the ladder of success. Lesson 10. Confront your fears and grow. Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. Here's what he said. If you want to be successful, you must be willing to be uncomfortable. I'll never forget those words. And Gil was right on the money. To achieve your goals and realize your potential, you must be willing to be uncomfortable, to do things that you're afraid to do. That's how you develop your potential. Sounds so simple, doesn't it? And yet, what do most people do when they face a frightening situation or new activity? They back away from the fear. They don't take action. I know, because that's what I did for the first 30 years of my life. And I can tell you without hesitation that it's a losing strategy. Show me a successful person, and I'll show you someone who confronts his or her fears and takes action. Examining our fears. Have you ever been afraid or anxious before trying a new or challenging activity? Has that fear ever stopped you from taking action? I'm sure you've been paralyzed by fear at one time or another in your life. I know I have. That's simply part of being human. Of course, every person has a different fear threshold. What frightens one person to death might have little impact on someone else. For example, to some, speaking in public or starting a new business is scary. Others might be fearful about asking someone for directions or for a date. Regardless of how trivial or silly you believe your fears may be, this lesson applies to you. When I talk about fear, I'm not referring to physical risks that might injure you or endanger your health, such as diving off cliffs in Acapulco or bungee jumping. I'm scared of those things, too, and I have no plans to do either of them. What I'm talking about here are those challenges that stand in the way of your personal and professional growth. These are the things that scare you, but which you know are necessary if you're going to get what you want in life. Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. The activities and situations that lie inside the circle are non-threatening and familiar. They're routine, part of your everyday life, the things you can do with no sweat. In this category are tasks such as speaking to your friends or coworkers or filling out the daily paperwork at your job. However, you occasionally face experiences or challenges that are outside your comfort zone. These are represented by the XS in the diagram above. The farther the X is from the circle, the more afraid you are to participate in that activity. When faced with something outside your comfort zone, you suddenly feel nervous. Your palms become sweaty and your heart pounds. You begin to wonder, will I be able to handle it? Will others laugh at me? What will my friends and relatives say? As you look at the diagram above, what does the X represent for you? In other words, what fear is holding you back from reaching the next level of success or fulfillment in your life? Is it fear of approaching new prospects? Is it fear about changing careers? Is it fear about learning new skills? Is it fear of going back to school? Is it fear of telling other people what's on your mind? Is it fear of public speaking? The benefit of backing away from your fears. When confronted with an anxiety-producing event, most people will retreat to avoid the fear and anxiety. That's what I used to do. You see, backing away does relieve the fear and anxiety that would have resulted if you followed through with the activity. For instance, if someone asks you to make a presentation within your company and you decline, you save yourself the sleepless nights you'd have worrying about it and the nervousness you'd experience in the days leading up to the presentation. In fact, I've found that's the one and only benefit you get by retreating, a momentary avoidance of anxiety. Think about it for a moment. Can you list any other benefits that people get when they refuse to confront their fears? I've asked that question of thousands of people, and nobody has been able to come up with any additional benefits. For good reason, there are none. The price you pay? Now, I want you to seriously consider the price you pay when you back away from those fears that are standing in the way of your growth. Here's what happens. Your self-esteem is lowered. You feel powerless and frustrated. You sabotage your success. You lead an uneventful, boring life. Is this a price worth paying for the short-term avoidance of fear and anxiety? Most of us are indeed willing to pay this dear price, simply to avoid temporary discomfort and possible ridicule from others. Trust me, folks, this is insane. In the long run, retreating is not the best way to handle your problem. You'll never be highly successful or develop your talents to the fullest unless you're willing to confront your fears. He who loses wealth loses much. He who loses a friend loses more. But he who loses courage loses all. Reframe the situation. If I could give you a way to confront uncomfortable situations without fear or anxiety, you'd be ecstatic and eternally grateful, wouldn't you? Sorry, But there's no such magical solution. I can't wave a magic wand and take away your fears. How then can you muster the courage to do those things that you fear, but which are necessary for your success and growth? The next time you face a scary situation, I suggest you take a different outlook. Most people start thinking, I won't be able to do this well, and other people may laugh at me or reject me. They get hung up about how well they're going to perform. Because of these worries, they decide to retreat. While you should always go in with a positive attitude and prepare beforehand to the extent possible, don't be overly concerned with the result. Consider yourself an immediate winner when you take the step and do the thing you fear. That's right. You're a winner just by entering the arena and participating, regardless of the result. Moving forward even when you're afraid. For instance, let's assume you're afraid to speak in public, but you confront your fear and do it anyway. The moment you get up and speak before the audience, you're a winner. Your knees may be shaking and your voice may be quivering. That doesn't matter. You faced your fear and accepted the challenge. Congratulations are in order. The likely result is that your self-esteem will be enhanced and you'll feel exhilarated. On your first attempt, you won't be hailed as the world's finest speaker. So what? Let's face it. You can't expect to be an accomplished speaker during your first presentation. Were you a great tennis player after your first game? Or a great swimmer the first time you entered the water? Developing any skill takes time. Running away from your fears is a losing strategy. Just do it. Ralph Waldo Emerson offered some simple advice, which, if followed, can transform your life. He said, "Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain." I know this advice makes good sense, but some people are just too afraid to act. Remember my prior words about the steep price you pay when you let your fears dominate you. In the end, running away from your fears is a losing strategy. It will only bring you frustration and unhappiness. I can tell you that from personal experience. There's nothing wrong with having some fears. Successful people have fears. The difference is that successful people take action and move forward despite being afraid. It's not always easy, I'll grant that. But you'll always feel better about yourself when you face your fears. In the last 14 years, I've had the privilege of traveling throughout the United States and abroad, and of speaking with thousands of people. During all this time, I haven't met one person who confronted his or her fears, took action, and later regretted it. Not a single one. But I've met many people who tell me how much they regret backing away from their fears and letting their dreams die. As my friend Burke Hedges often says, don't be one of those who lets his regrets take the place of his dreams. So, stretch yourself, confront your fears, and be willing to expand your comfort zone. The courage muscle can be developed just like any other muscle, with exercise. And when you do an activity outside your comfort zone a few times, you know what happens. That same activity becomes part of your comfort zone. There's another bonus when you're willing to expand your comfort zone. When you push through fear and take action in some areas of your life, you'll develop confidence in other areas as well. It's true. As I became more comfortable as a speaker, I also became a better salesman, a better businessman, a better listener. The list goes on and on. You can try to dance around it all you want, but you won't develop your abilities to the fullest unless you're willing to be uncomfortable. Life doesn't reward those who refuse to expose themselves to difficulties and challenges. It's important that you put yourself in a position to win, and that means taking action despite fear. Confront your fears, and you're on the way to developing your potential and leading the exciting, fulfilling life you deserve. It's a decision you'll never regret. Lesson 11. Get out there and fail. Failure is only the opportunity to more intelligently begin again. The greatest mistake a person can make is to be afraid of making one. Success seems to be largely a matter of hanging on after others have let go. Failure doesn't mean you've reached the end of the line and that success isn't possible. The only time success is impossible is when you quit. Quitting is final, but continued attempts, with commitment and diligence, can be turned into success. If you aren't getting the results you want or have been discouraged by failures, ask yourself these questions. 1. Do I have an unrealistic timetable? Maybe you expect to skip steps and succeed on a grand scale immediately. Success is usually achieved by climbing one step at a time, and you don't always know how long it will take to advance to the next level. So, be patient with yourself and resist the temptation to compare your progress with that of anyone else. You'll advance faster than some, slower than others. Maintain a great attitude. Take action, Make adjustments and the results will come. 2. Am I truly committed? Do you have a burning desire to achieve your goal? It's essential that you be willing to do whatever it takes and that you banish any thought of giving up before you accomplish your objective. Of course, it's much easier to be committed when you love what you're doing. Therefore, go after those goals you're passionate about and harbor no thought of quitting. 3. Do I have too many discouraging influences? Unsuccessful results can be frustrating. That's why we need to surround ourselves with people who support and believe in us. If you hang around with negative people who are highly critical or who are doing very little in their own lives, your energy and enthusiasm will be drained. Therefore, develop a network of individuals to encourage and coach you toward success. 4. Am I preparing to succeed? Success in any endeavor requires thorough preparation. Are you taking steps to learn everything you can about accomplishing your goal? This means reading books, listening to tapes, taking courses, and networking with highly successful people in your field. It might mean finding a mentor or getting a coach to work with you. Successful individuals are always sharpening their skills. Those getting unsuccessful outcomes often do the same things over and over without making necessary adjustments. So be coachable. Accept the fact that you don't already know it all and find resources to keep you on track and moving forward. Would you like me to give you a formula for success? It's quite simple. Double your rate of failure. 5. Am I truly willing to fail? Face it, failure is inevitable. You will encounter defeat prior to succeeding. In our hearts, we know our most valuable lessons come from our failures. Failure is essential for growth. Look failure squarely in the face and see it as a natural part of the success process. Then, failure will lose its power over you. The truth is, when you're not afraid to fail, you're well on the way to success. Welcome failure as an unavoidable yet vital component in the quest to achieve your goals. Turning failure into success. Your failures are learning experiences that point out the adjustments you must make. Never try to hide from failure, for that approach guarantees that you'll take virtually no risks and achieve very little. As Beverly Sills once remarked, you may be disappointed if you fail, but you are doomed if you don't try. No, you won't close every sale, and you won't make money on every investment. Life is a series of wins and losses, even for the most successful. The winners in life know that you crawl before you walk and you walk before you run. And with each new goal comes a new set of failures. It's up to you whether you treat these disappointments as temporary setbacks and challenges to overcome or as insurmountable obstacles. If you make it your business to learn from every defeat and stay focused on the end result you wish to attain, failure will eventually lead you to success. Lesson 12. Networking that gets results. You can get everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. If you're positive and enthusiastic, people will want to spend time with you. If given the choice, wouldn't you like to succeed sooner rather than later? Well, networking is a way to leverage your own efforts and accelerate the pace at which you get results. After all, the more solid relationships you build, the greater your opportunities for success. The benefits of networking. While your success certainly starts with you, it grows to higher levels as a result of your associations and relationships with people. Simply put, you can't succeed on a grand scale all by yourself. That's why networking is so important. For the purposes of this lesson, let's define networking as the development of relationships with people for mutual benefit. In the business arena, networking has the following benefits: generates new clients or business leads, increases employment opportunities, helps in finding the right people to fill critical positions, provides valuable information and resources, assists in solving problems. In the personal realm, here's what networking can do for you. Enhance your social relationships by introducing you to new friends. Help you to become acquainted with people of varying ethnic, cultural, and philosophical backgrounds. Provide valuable information and resources. Contribute to your spiritual growth. Now that we know what networking can do, the question is, what can we do to enhance the effectiveness of our network? Attitude and action. 1. Project a winning attitude. When it comes to networking, attitude is everything. If you're positive and enthusiastic, people will want to spend time with you. They'll want to help you. If you're gloomy and negative, people will avoid you, and they'll hesitate to refer you to their friends and colleagues. 2. Participate actively in groups and organizations. Effective networking and relationship building takes more than paying dues. putting your name in a directory, and showing up for meetings. You must demonstrate that you'll take the time and make the effort to contribute to the group. What kinds of things can you do? For starters, you can volunteer for committees or serve as an officer or member of the board of directors. The other members will respect you when they see you roll up your sleeves and do some work. They'll also learn about your people skills, your character, your values, and last, but not least, your attitude. 4. If you refer someone, make sure that the person mentions your name as the source of the referral. Be explicit. Let's assume you're about to refer John Smith to your graphic designer, Jane Jones. You might say to John, "Give Jane a call, and please tell her that I referred you." In some instances, you may even call Jane and let her know that John Smith will be contacting her. Then, the next time you see or speak to Jane, remember to ask if John called and how it turned out. You want to reinforce in Jane's mind that you're looking out for her and helping her to grow her business. 5. Be selective. Don't refer every person you meet. Respect the time of those in your network. Referring unqualified leads will reflect poorly on you. Ask yourself whether or not a particular referral is really going to be of value to your network partner. Keep in mind that the key is the quality, not quantity, of the leads you supply. Communication. 6. Be a good listener. Have you ever been speaking to someone who goes on and on about himself and his business and never takes a moment to ask about you? We've all run into the me types, and they're the last people you want to help. So, in your conversations, focus on drawing other people out. 7. Call people from time to time just because you care. How do you feel when someone calls you on the phone and says, "Hey, I was just thinking about you and was wondering how you're doing"? I'll bet you feel like $1,000,000. If that's the case, why don't we make these calls more often? Every now and then, make it a point to call people in your network simply to ask how they're doing and to offer your support and encouragement. That's right. Call just because you care and because that's the way you'd like to be treated. You can succeed best and quickest by helping others to succeed. Please understand that this isn't manipulation or a sales tactic on my part. I'm not expecting these people to give me business. I really care about how they're doing. Business is simply a byproduct of reconnecting with them. 8. Take advantage of everyday opportunities to meet people. You can make excellent contacts just about anywhere, at the health club or online at the supermarket. You never know from what seed your next valuable relationship will sprout. When I go to the gym on the weekends, I always wear an attitude is everything shirt. It's a great icebreaker, and people will come up to me to talk about attitude. It gives me an opportunity to learn about them and to tell them about my company. 9. Treat every person as important, not just the influential ones. Don't be a snob. The person you meet, whether or not they're the boss, may have a friend or relative who can benefit from your product or service. So, when speaking to someone at a meeting or party, give that person your undivided attention. And please promise me that you won't be one of those who gazes around looking for more important people to talk to. That really bugs me. You're talking with someone, and then he notices someone out of the corner of his eye, someone he deems more important than you. So he stops listening to you and abruptly breaks away to start a conversation with that other person. Don't do that. Treat every person you encounter with dignity and respect. 10. At meetings and seminars, make it a point to meet different people. Don't sit with the same group at every gathering. While it's great to talk with friends for part of the meeting, you'll reap greater benefits if you make the extra effort to meet new faces. 11. Be willing to go beyond your comfort zone. For instance, if you have the urge to introduce yourself to someone, do it. You might hesitate, thinking that the person is too important or too busy to speak with you. Even if you're nervous, force yourself to move forward and make contact. You'll get more comfortable as time goes on. 12. Ask for what you want. By helping others, you've now earned the right to request assistance yourself. Don't be shy. As long as you've done your best to serve those in your network, they'll be more than willing to return the favor. Treat every person you encounter with dignity and respect. Building your network. The networking suggestions offered above are merely the tip of the iceberg. You should be able to come up with several new ideas of your own. How? By going to your library or bookstore and seeking out the many excellent books on networking. And by noticing what other people are doing and adapting their ideas in a way that suits you. Remember that networks are built over time and that significant results usually don't show up immediately. So be patient. Build a solid foundation of relationships and continue to expand and strengthen them. You'll have to put in a lot before you begin reaping the big rewards. One final point. Great networking skills are not a substitute for being excellent in your field. You might be a terrific person, but if you aren't talented at what you do and constantly learning and improving, your efforts will yield disappointing results. Now go ahead, select a few of these networking techniques and implement them right away. Get to work serving and improving your network. Then you will truly have an army of troops working to help you succeed. Conclusion: change your attitude and you change your life. To change your circumstances, first start thinking differently. Take control of your life. I applaud you for taking the time to read this book. It shows that you're truly interested in developing your incredible potential. Act as if it were impossible to fail. Dorothea brandies some exciting breakthroughs in your life. Yet, reading this book is only the first step to living the life you want to live. When you focus on these ideas and take action to implement them, you're on the way to creating some exciting breakthroughs in your life. It's the rare individual who applies the success principles discussed in this book on a daily basis. It's the rare individual who consistently maintains a positive attitude, knowing that his thoughts will become his reality. It's the rare individual who watches the words he uses, knowing that he's programming his mind for success, mediocrity, or failure. It's the rare individual who has the guts to confront her fears, because that's where her potential will be developed, by doing things she's afraid to do. It's the rare individual who looks for the silver lining in every dark cloud. And it's the rare individual who makes a commitment, follows through with a positive attitude, and has the persistence to get the job done. I challenge you to be one of those rare individuals. You have the potential to become more than you ever dreamed. You have greatness within you, and your attitude is the key to unlocking that potential. Changing my attitude changed my life. And if a better attitude can work miracles in my life, it can work miracles in yours.